Good day, this is Global Watch on your digital first Pan-African news network, TOS TV. I am Abigail Okwade. A French schoolgirl has admitted to spreading false claims about Samuel Paty, a teacher before he was beheaded in October of last year, after showing students cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad. The girl, whose complaint sparked an online campaign against Paty, has now admitted that she was not in the class on that day. The 13-year-old girl, who has not been officially named, originally told her father that Paty had asked Muslim students to leave the classroom while she showed the cartoon during a class on free speech and blasphemy. Depictions of the Prophet Muhammad are widely regarded as taboo in Islam and are considered highly offensive by Muslims. The issue is particularly sensitive in France because of the decisions by satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo to publish cartoons of the Prophet. According to evidence given by the girl seen by French media, she said, and I quote, "I didn't see the cartoons. If it was a girl in my class who showed me them." The girl explains in her leaked testimony that she made up the story so as not to disappoint her father. She lied because she felt trapped in a spiral because her classmates had asked her to be a spokesperson, her lawyer Mbeko Tabula said. Speaking on French radio on Tuesday, the Paty family's lawyer said the girl's family knew that she had not been in the class on the day in question. Paty's killing stunned France and has led to an outpouring of support at memorial ceremonies and marches around the country. Scattered protests were held in Yangon and other towns across Myanmar on Tuesday after hundreds of young activists who had been trapped overnight were able to get out. Both Myanmar security forces quickly snuffed out sporadic anti-junta protests using tear gas and stun grenades. At least 2 people were wounded, one by a gunshot in the town of Moyin in the north, local media said. But there have also been reports of at least 50 people in the area being detained without warrants late on Monday and into Tuesday morning. Earlier, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres had called on security forces for maximum restraint and the safe release of all protesters without violence or arrest, a call echoed by the US and British embassies in Myanmar. A draft peace plan by the United States for Afghanistan has called for the current government to be replaced with an interim administration until a new constitution is agreed and elections held, while a joint commission monitors a ceasefire. The Afghan warring parties, however, have long harbored deep objections to key ideas in the 8-page transitional peace government proposal. Under the interim government, the national parliament could either be extended to include Taliban members or suspended until after the election, the plan suggests. U.S. State Department spokesperson Ned Price will not confirm the draft, saying it is often important for our diplomatic efforts that we are able to conduct them in private. Every idea we have put on the table, every proposal that is out there, we understand that this process at its core must be Afghan-led and Afghan-owned, he added. Afghan President Ghani has refused to step down aside for a transitional government. The senior presidential palace spokesman official in Kabul echoed that on Monday they will never accept an interim setup through a conference or a political deal. The Taliban have rejected a ceasefire and elections. The U.S. draft calls for the establishment of a transitional government. The interim administration under a president chosen by both sides would run the country until elections could be held under a constitution drafted by a commission selected by both sides and the president. Still on the United States said the Houthi military armed group must show willingness to engage in a political process to achieve peace in Yemen after weeks of renewed missile and drone attacks carried out by the Iran-allied rebels in Saudi Arabia. On Sunday, the group launched a drone and missile attack at a Saudi oil facility in the eastern province, pushing global oil prices to the highest level in 2 years. Although the Saudi-led coalition said most of the drones and missiles were intercepted en route to their targets and there were no casualties or property losses from the attacks on Sunday. The Houthis have stepped up attacks on Saudi territory in recent weeks and fresh diplomatic efforts by the Biden administration to end the war that has ravaged the most impoverished country in the Middle East.
Broadly speaking, I would say that we condemn the egregious Houthi drone and missile attack against Saudi Aramco's facilities in Dhahran and Ras Tur Noura. and other civilian sites, including Hamis Mushat and in Jeddah. We call on all parties to seriously commit to a ceasefire, to engage in negotiations under UN auspices in conjunction with our Special Envoy Tim Linderking, who in turn is working closely with the UN's envoy Martin Griffiths. The Houthis, in our view, and in the view of our allies and partners, have to demonstrate their willingness to engage in a political process. They need to, quite simply, stop attacking and start negotiating.
The Yemeni group has defended the cross-border attacks, saying that they are in response to deadly Saudi air raids in the country. The Houthis said they also attacked military targets in the Saudi cities of Dammam, Asir, and Jazan. The renewed attacks on Saudi targets come after U.S. President Joe Biden halted support to Saudi offensive operation in Yemen's war. Washington said, however, that it will continue to help Riyadh defend itself from regional threats. Washington also reversed a decision by former U.S. President Donald Trump to put Houthis on a terror list. The latest escalation comes amid renewed diplomatic efforts by the U.S. and the United Nations to reach a ceasefire that would pave way for a resumption of U.S.-sponsored political talks to end the conflict. Coming up, the uncertainty 10 years after Japan's man-made Fukushima plant nuclear disaster. This and more from the Asian continent after the break. Do stay tuned. Thank you for staying tuned. You are still watching Global Watch on your digital First Pan-African News Network, TOS TV. The effects of the Fukushima nuclear accident will be felt for decades into the future, says local and international activists on the 10th anniversary of Japan's triple disaster of March of 2011, contradicting the Japanese government official narrative that the crisis has largely been overcome. Memories of that day 10 years ago remain fresh for those who experienced it. A magnitude of 9.0 earthquake off Japan's northeastern coast, the strongest ever recorded, was followed first by an enormous tsunami and then by the meltdown of 3 nuclear reactors at the Fukushima Daiichi plant that was built on the coast and destroyed by the power of the wave. Nearly 20,000 people in the country's northeast lost their lives, and more than 160,000 residents fled as radiation spewed into the air. A decade later, in the Tohoku region, have been able to move on with their lives, but the decontamination efforts have meant most areas have been reopened and most Japanese people allowed to return to their homes. But there are still nearly 37,000 people listed as Fukushima's evacuees, and many of them say they have no intention of going back. Also, in the areas near Fukushima Daiichi, where radioactive particles contaminated the land, recovery has not been so swift. The government has spent about $300 billion to rebuild the tsunami-devastated Tohoku region, but areas around the Fukushima plant remain off limits. Worries about radiation levels linger, and many left have settled elsewhere. Decommissioning of the crippled plant would take decades and billions of dollars. Japan is again debating the role of nuclear power in its energy mix as the resource-poor country aims to achieve net carbon neutrality by 2050 to fight global warming. While the past 10 years has not seen a significant spike of cancers while the 10 years has not seen a significant spike of cancers among Fukushima's population or obvious signs of radiation-linked diseases in contrast to Chernobyl, which released 10 times more radiation, experts caution that there remains ample ground for concerns as exposure accumulates over time. Now to South Africa, where Representative Lee Nakion, chief of the ruling Democratic Party, stepped down from his post in the party on Tuesday in his bid to run for presidency next year. Lee's departure comes after more than 6 months since he was elected as the Democratic Party chairman in late August, and exactly 1 year before the next presidential election, slated for March 9 of 2022. The resignation is in compliance with the party's internal constitution that requires the chief a party chief or a member of the top party council planning to run for presidency to give up their party positions at least 1 year before the presidential elections. Even after his resignation as party chief, Lee will continue to serve as the co-chair of the DP's Election Strategy Committee for the April 7 Seoul and Busan by-elections, as well as the chair of the Special Party Committee in charge of a new airport construction project of Busan's Gadeok Island. Now, a major collaborative effort, the Global Breast Cancer Initiative, was introduced on Monday by the World Health Organization with the objective of reducing global breast cancer mortality by 2.5% per year until 2040, thereby averting an estimated 2.5 million deaths. Director of the Department of Non-Communicable Diseases at the WHO, Dr. Bente Milkesin, said that although the substantive progress in reducing breast cancer mortality in many high-income countries during the last 2 decades has been made, little progress has been made in low and middle-income countries. The higher mortality rate is as a result of late-stage diagnosis and inadequate access to quality care, she said. Breast cancer survival 5 years after diagnosis now exceeds 80% in most high-income countries, compared with 66% in India and just 40% in South Africa. The premature deaths and high out-of-pocket expenditure that arise when breast cancer services are unavailable or unaffordable result in social disruption, impoverishment, family instability, and often children, and also threatened economic growth, Dr. Milkinson added. Breast cancer has now overtaken lung cancer as the world's most commonly diagnosed cancer and is responsible for 1 in 6 of all cancer deaths among women, according to statistics released by the International Agency for Research on Cancer in December of 2020. Health promotion will include public education, risk reduction strategies, and reducing the stigma associated with breast health that exists in some parts of the world. While timely breast cancer diagnosis should reduce delays between the times a patient first interacts with the health system and the initiation of breast cancer treatment, comprehensive treatment and care for breast cancer should include access to surgery, chemotherapy, and/or radiotherapy, as well as rehabilitation support for women following treatment and palliative services to reduce pain and discomfort. Now, in some business news, Bitcoin's value surpassed $1 trillion on Tuesday as the price of cryptocurrency jumped. The digital coin's price rose on Tuesday as its market capitalization went above $1 trillion in mid-morning trade Singapore time, according to CoinDesk. Bitcoin extended those gains, hitting a 24-hour high of $54,348.57 in early afternoon Singapore time, around 7% higher than the same time a day before. It is only the second time that Bitcoin value has surpassed $1 trillion after hitting the milestone for the first time on February of 19. The digital currency is up over 80% this year and 570% higher over the last 12 months. Bitcoin's rally has been attributed to several factors, including participation from larger institutional investors and some notable purchases from corporations. Companies are also making acquisitions in the cryptocurrency space. And that is it on Global Watch. For more updates, do visit our website at www.tostvnetwork.com. Do follow and like TOS TV Network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And remember to subscribe on YouTube. I am Abigail Okwade. Stay safe.